Hello, and welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm Charles Rogers.
And I'm Andy.
And Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I know that we had to work pretty hard to get you here this week, given how Bradley and I's schedules are, but I was absolutely determined to have you on for this episode after seeing it.
Yeah, it was a real doozy, and I'm glad to be here. I'm from Force Friends Rewatch, yeah, I'm a they/them gay. So,
for the sake of our comment section, yes. Now, Force Friends, that's you and your friend Ryan, and you guys are watching through. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, on Force Friends, we pick a theme or a idea or a concept in Star Wars, and then we trace it chronologically through TV shows to see how the idea gets explored. So the first season we did with that concept was we watched every Mandalorian themed episode of Star Wars TV. So we watched all the Clone Wars episodes, then Rebels, and then The Mandalorian to try and like figure out stuff that was like being dropped in Mando, but if you hadn't seen the other shows in a while, we were like fuzzy on. So that was really fun. And we're doing Twi'leks now. So we're watching every Twi'lek/Ryloth episode of TV.
Nice. Yeah, I know that I just recently forced my boyfriend practically at gunpoint to sit down and watch all of Star Wars Rebels, which he pretended to not be enthused about, and now he owns a stuffed Lothcat, so that's where he's at. But I was actually listening to the back episodes of Force Friends at the same time as I was watching through the show with him, and the pace at which we were watching the show actually lined up to when I could listen to the episodes.
Oh,
so
nice.
It actually worked out that I was able to listen to some of the Mando episodes, like the episodes on Zero Hour, and the other Mando-themed episodes from the back two seasons of Rebels, and then I would listen to the Force Friends Rewatch episode shortly after that. So it was very, like, it's always nice to watch something and then hear somebody talk about it.
Yeah, that's so cool that you were able to like listen along. That's awesome.
Well, Andy, thank you again for joining us. Let's dive right in. Bradley, I don't think we have any news this week. Do you want to drop any fucking bombshells on me this week, Bradley? Do you want to fucking just drop something on me that I was not prepared for? Do you want to make any startling revelations about yourself?
Let's see. Oh, I started DMing Max Lloyd Jones last night.
We'll come back to
I'm just
that
kidding.
in
I'm just
a
kidding. I'm
sec.
just kidding.
Oh no, put a pin in that because we're going to come back to that. That's going to come up later.
It will.
We do have, though, before we dive into the episode, we do have not necessarily the thing Charles fucked up, but the thing Charles didn't realize and had to be reminded on Twitter. So do y'all know the droid, the cooking droid that we loved so much last week with the crazy flinging arms and knives?
Yeah, the Grievous droid.
Yeah, I thought that was a completely new droid to Star Wars. I was wrong. That droid has appeared one other place, and that is on the refugee ship scene in Attack of the Clones. That is the droid that is working the buffet line that R2 steals the bowls from.
No, that's awesome.
That's so fun.
Yeah, Phil, I can never say his last name, Stosak? I cannot pronounce your last name, Phil. I'm so sorry. But your Twitter is an absolute goldmine of obscure Star Wars stuff.
I missed that, so.
I missed that. I think maybe because I don't watch Attack of the Clones that often. It's not something like Revenge of the Sith that I could like easily like immediately know the references.
Maybe.
It is my second least favorite Star Wars movie, and I still like it. Like I like Attack of the Clones. Some people shit on it, but yeah, it is second from the bottom.
Wait, what's your least favorite?
Oh, I mean, Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, whoa, okay,
oh, boy.
Interesting. I think that's going to become, that's so funny that you say that, because I listen to Star Wars Minute podcast, and they always ask their guests, you know, how would you rank the Star Wars movies? And before now, you know, they haven't really had people rank Rise of Skywalker because it just wasn't a thing until, you know, recently. And then now I'm thinking like, whoa, I wonder where people are going to start ranking that, because everybody would always used to say Phantom Menace was their least favorite. So it's just interesting.
See,
I love Phantom Menace.
Attack of the Clones is my least favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I ate well this episode as a Phantom Menace stan.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Oh yeah. I have a soft spot for it because I was 8 or 9 when it came out.
Mhm.
So I was just the right age to like comprehend what I was seeing beyond flashy lights.
Right.
Rise of Skywalker is the only Star Wars movie I've watched once. I watched it in theaters. Once it came out on Disney Plus, I sat myself down and I got a pen and paper and I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm gonna write down everything that I liked, and like that'll help me like fall in love with this movie. And I got about halfway through and was like, I'm not having fun with this. And I turned it off and haven't gone back.
I know that Brian from Pink Milk, who we know, Andy, Brian has struggled really hard because he doesn't like disliking a Star Wars thing. So he's been on like a journey to try to find ways to appreciate the Rise of Skywalker. And he's been like he read the book, and that did a pretty good job for him, I guess. He would be somebody that I'd be interested to talk to about that journey.
There's stuff I like. Like, I love Babu Frick. I love the lightsaber fight where like they're phasing in and out of the different locations. A lot of the costumes are great. Like Poe and Finn have never looked better. But yeah, that movie was not made for me. And I'm also fine with that though. Like,
that's fair.
Like, not every piece of Star Wars has to be something that I personally love and connect with. Like, this movie was made, I think, pretty intentionally in retaliation to The Last Jedi, which I adored. And so it's clear that this was made for the people who didn't like that movie. And, you know, I'm happy that they're happy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting with the sequels because, like, we have a plethora of different guests on the show. Rise of Skywalker is very rarely in the middle for people. It's either down somewhere near the bottom or it's up somewhere near the top. I almost never hear it as kind of mid-tier. And The Last Jedi is the same way. Like, it's my favorite of the Star Wars movies in general. It's not the one that I think is the best, but it's my personal favorite. But I also am really good friends with people who it is the bottom or the second to last, who just absolutely despise this movie.
And I mean, like, we're at a point where there's so much Star Wars that there's really is something for everyone. And there's no need to be the sort of fan. I feel like a lot of fans, we like to collect things. And so we like to say, I've read every Star Wars book, I've read every comic, I've seen every show. You know, we want to have that achievement unlocked because we play video games, and, you know, you gotta go through every corner of the map and unlock everything. And like, y'all, you don't need to do that though. Like, you can just watch the stuff you like, and you can just read the stuff you like. And if you feel like something isn't for you, then like, just skip it. Like, no need to force yourself to read a bunch of stuff and turn something you love into a chore.
Exactly. And like, some people, like, I am one of those people. I like to consume everything at least once, even the stuff that I don't necessarily like. Like, I've now caught up on all the Star Wars comics, and I can definitely say that there's issues of the Star Wars comics that I just flat out didn't like, or there's stuff that's running now that I'm probably not ever going to go back and revisit unless I decide to do like this insane canon run. So you don't have to wallow in everything. I feel like fans, toxic fans in particular, I feel like love to latch on to the things that they don't like, and they'll just wallow in them because hate is a very powerful emotion and a very seductive emotion. And it can be a lot of fun to hate on something that you don't like. And I feel like a lot of people lean too much into that to an unhealthy extent. And I agree with you. Just if you don't like something, skip it. I vehemently hate the Force Unleashed games. Just absolutely hate them. I'll bring up that I don't like them performatively on the show, but in my day-to-day life, I barely think about them. I'm just like, I don't like these. Or I like to pretend that Karen Travis never wrote a single thing at all in general. So I've never gone back and revisited any of her stuff, even after the Mando stuff, because I feel no need to, because I know that that's a corner of the Legends universe that I just didn't enjoy.
She's a bad author, and she has some really weird opinions on masculinity. And I don't need to read a single word that she has written other than what I've already consumed.
Well, speaking of Mandalorians who are
Good
better than...
There you go. There you
Thank
go.
you.
Good segue.
I've gotten very good at this by now.
We got around to the show, baby.
Right.
Speaking of Mandalorians who weren't written by a bad writer and also bad person, Bradley, do you want to take us into this week's episode of the Sorry, I see. I misspoke. Sorry. The Book of Dinjart. Fuck me.
Right.
I got it wrong again. Shit. What was the show we were watching, Bradley?
I mean, I even literally wrote my script. It was like, normally I always start with this week, Boba decided. Oh, just kidding. This week. This week, the Mandalorian decided he's leaving the single parenthood life behind by bounty hunting instead and getting a new ride. Andy, what is one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
Oh boy, that's a big question.
You gotta pick one.
I liked everything very much. But I am going to say the fact that prequel stands ate good tonight. That was one thing I liked. One thing I didn't like is I didn't dislike anything. I cannot pick anything that I disliked.
Okay. That's fair. You can also say that.
Maybe some of the Twitter reactions I saw to Din's coming out moment is what I disliked, but that's Twitter for you. That's Star Wars Twitter, baby.
Oh God, I have never been happier than this week to be so fucking busy at work that I literally cannot check my phone at all.
People be wild.
Yeah. If you guys have noticed, the Gold Squadron Gays Twitter is real quiet this week. It's because my primary job is eating up all my time and I can't do my secondary job. So apparently I missed some weird toxic shit that I have no desire to go back and look at.
Charles, what's one thing you liked and one thing you didn't?
So one thing I liked, having watched the Mandalorian season 2 all the way through and having our conversations with people like Erin, whose inbox I have been blowing up with insistence that she needs to watch this episode, and talking about the whole concept of deprogramming, coming out of a cult, coming out of a deeply fundamentalist environment and deprogramming, that Din reacts to a traumatic loss in his life by going back to that cult that he just spent a bunch of time trying to leave because that's where he finds comfort, even though it's toxic and fucked up and unhealthy, is such an important theme of this episode. I hate that for Din, but I love that it is a thing that is happening that we can talk about. Mm-hmm. It's what the Jaime Lannister stuff in season 8 of Game of Thrones was trying to do, where you go back to the weird, horrible thing because it's where you find the most comfort. But this is actually done well. And I really liked it, and I'm glad that we can have conversations about it. One thing I disliked about this episode, so the show is called The Book of Boba Fett. And Boba Fett is not even mentioned barely in this episode. And that's a problem. you can make the case that an episode can exist of the Book of Boba Fett without Boba Fett in it, as long as Boba Fett feeds, like, as long as the episode is about him or impacted by him in some way. This episode, I think, missed a golden opportunity to show us the perspective of somebody on Tatooine under Boba's rule that is not Boba Fett. We could have had a chance to see Pelimoto and Din existing in this space while influenced by Boba Fett without necessarily seeing him. Especially since I will point out a specific instance where they brushed up against this. They got so close, but they didn't quite lean into it enough, I felt like. And that would have been the one thing I would have changed to maybe make this episode work a little bit better in context to the rest of the show. That was my thing I disliked. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a dislike.
Okay.
I thought of one.
Oh.
I don't like that the spear got melted down.
Oh.
What the fuck, Dan?
I felt like that was a really iconic weapon that if Din is going to keep the Darksaber, he could have given to like one of his lieutenants like Sabine or Bo-Katan later, or if he's going to give up the Darksaber, he could have kept the spear. And don't get me wrong, I love that Grogurt is getting a little mithril shirt made, but I don't know. I like the spear. I think it's a bummer that it got destroyed.
I have a note on the melting down of the spear, and we will come back to it because of this overarching theme of the cult bullshit that happens in this episode. But Bradley, give us one like and one dislike real fast before I start ripping this episode apart and displaying its guts to our audience.
Okay, one thing I liked, besides all the prequel stuff, I really enjoyed the design of the satellite / moon city, whatever that was.
It's called the Glavis Ring.
Okay, so I love that.
Thank you, Liam. Like Star Wars, somebody I follow on Twitter who like always knows the planet names for things.
Got it. I love the design. Love the idea that it just like constantly is like light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, which would get so annoying, by the way. But I feel like visually it's stunning, but like practically it's like a terrible design for a space station. But love that. I didn't like you said, the show is called Book of Boba. Unfortunately, I do think that's the one thing the show missed the mark on. I don't know how you could have gotten him in other than like, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but I did notice in the credits, he is still credited as top billing for this episode.
Him and Ming-Na Wen, which is correct.
Right, but at least Ming
deserves top billing all
but
the
at least
time.
Ming showed up like for the episode, so that's why I was confused. And I thought maybe like they had filmed something that maybe just didn't make it in, or we're gonna follow in another situation where next week, you know, it's like bleeding into each other, and then Boba is in the very beginning and it's back to normal. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but that's just what. Chapter 5 begins with Din Djarin collecting on a bounty in the middle of a nerf herder butcher shop. The bounty decides to be brought in cold as Din fights the group of Klatooinians and slices them apart with his Darksaber, but not before hurting himself in the process. Title card, Return of the Mandalorian.
The Klatooinian stands who must exist apparently are really eating well with these episodes.
I hate this creature design. I hate Klatooinians.
Yeah, they're like bulldogs or something. Like, I don't like them. Like,
because I was
people into puff play are like real thirsty.
That's
on
what
these
it
episodes,
is.
But yeah,
that's what it is. I couldn't get what the thing was, but it was. That's it. It's pup play. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Really?
They look like human dogs.
Yes, they look like human dogs. That's what it is. I was trying to figure out what thing that they did, what made them so weird to me, and it's because they're like basically furries walking around.
Is there like a Klatoonian like pup talk going around? Am I just in the wrong part of TikTok, or possibly in the right part of TikTok because I'm not seeing this?
You know what I loved about this fight, though? Something that I've bitched about a lot on Force Friends is that in season 2, Din was kind of invincible. Like, he would just walk down hallways with tons of people shooting at him and be fine. He was like goddamn Iron Man or some shit. And I love that he gets hurt, and he gets hurt badly in this fight. Like, his leg is all fucked up. He has a limp for like the next 20 minutes of the episode. And I loved it. It felt very real again. It felt like season 1 Mando.
And it's like his own fuck up that does it, because he whacks himself with the Darksaber because he doesn't know how to use it.
Yep.
Like, he does it to himself. Like, one of my favorite moments from Mando season 2 was the Mayfeld episode where he's wearing the different armor and he forgets that he's wearing the different armor, and so he lets himself get, I forget, it's either shot or hit.
Yeah.
And then he actually feels it, and he's like, oh no, I'm not Iron Man anymore. The meat packing plant is, of course, a classic mafia mob staple. So if there's crime to be done, it will, of course, be in a meat packing plant. Are you sure they're Nerfs, Bradley?
So I was watching a video on YouTube or whatever, Easter eggs and all that stuff, and someone said the concept art at the end confirms that's what it was, because their heads are in the concept art. So
Did Star Wars Explained put out the video that I'm constantly cribbing from for my fun facts? Because if he did this week, I haven't watched it
Gotcha.
because I've been super busy. So this is the first week where I'm not just stealing Alex Damon's ideas. Yeah, so meat plant, classic location. Loved it. The minute he says, I could bring you in warm, I could bring you in cold, that is the moment where I kind of sat up and went, oh, Din's doing a backslide here.
Yeah, he's back to normal.
He's back to where he was all the way at the beginning of Mando season 1, episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
He had better not be hooked up with this cult again.
It really reminded me of Finn's character arc, where like Finn in Force Awakens, he learns that like it's good, like, yes, leave the First Order and like find someone you care about. But then in The Last Jedi, he has to learn like there are causes worth fighting for. And some people felt like he backslid. And it's like, no, he just because he cared about Rey didn't mean he cared about the Resistance.
Right.
And this felt like, you know, Din was on a mission from the armorer to find Grogu's people, but that didn't mean he was ready to like leave his cult. And even though he made friends outside of it, like, he's still a bounty hunter at heart, and he has to, like, especially now with Grogu gone, he has to fully embrace that he's on, you know, there are other paths. He can be more than just a bounty hunter.
The question being, you know, what is he without Grogu now that Grogu is gone? And apparently the answer is exactly the same, which I would agree. I don't think it's a backslide. Well, I think it's on the surface, it's a backslide, but I think it says something important about the character, that his reaction to going through this event of losing Grogu is to go back to things he finds comfortable. There was some criticism of the sequel trilogy, especially The Force Awakens, where people were like, oh, Han went back to smuggling, just it felt like nothing happened in the past 30 years. And I'm like, he raises the point in the movie Force Awakens that like it was a response to the trauma of Ben turning to the dark side. And the way that it impacted, either he says it or Leia says it about both of them, is that their reaction was to go back to where they were 30 years ago, where they were comfortable. And when I saw Dan say the same line from the first episode, I kind of went, oh, that's what's going on here. He's lost Grogu, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go back to what I find comfortable, which is bounty hunting, and also my very weird, horrible religious cult.
It's like when you go home from college and like you hook up with all of your high school friends, and like even if you've like learned and grown a bunch, like as soon as you're with them, like you're the same you were 4 years ago.
Yeah, and he's straight, like he's almost worse now. Like, because he straight kills the guy. Like,
Yeah,
he just bisects him.
He's pretty brutal. I mean, it felt very much like that first fight scene in the first episode where he pulls the guy through the door.
Oh yeah,
and cuts the dude in half with the door. But now he's got a fucking darksaber.
Oh, I didn't even realize that, because my first thought was, oh, he's like backslid to being a bounty hunter, and also now he's become much more ruthless. Like in the loss of Grogu. And I always kind of thought to myself as I was watching it, I was like, this is the show that people were worried that Mandalorian was going to be. Was going to be just this brutal, like, dark guy doing dark things to survive in the world. Badass and killing people. But I also think it's important that, like, he gives the other people who's not there, like, repeated chances to leave. And then the guys who are outside, he's like, hey, your boss is dead. You want to seize the means of production?
Loved that.
Comrade Din joining Comrade Boba from episode 3. I love it.
Clatoonian Workers United.
This wouldn't have happened if they had just unionized.
Yeah.
I did have sort of a weird moment when the Book of Boba Fett title card popped up. Oh yeah, I am watching the Book of Boba Fett. Okay.
It felt a little appropriate to me because, like, the end of season 2 of Mando is kind of a backdoor pilot for Book of Boba Fett, and this was kind of like a backdoor, like, premiere of season 3 of Mando. Yeah. Like, I felt like it was kind of appropriate. Like, Din was like, hey, old man, I'll scratch your back, and then Boba was like, all right, now come over here, I'm gonna scratch yours. Here's your season 3 premiere.
Yeah, it's almost like if you had taken this scene and then made him not injure himself. Like, let's say it ended with him not injuring himself, and then he just leaves. And so for some reason, he has to say, like, I have to go see a little friend. Like, that would have been, like, your little end scene of Book of Boba, and then teasing us for season 3. Like, you could have done the whole thing. I don't know. It's really weird that they shoehorn this episode in, because we always love to say that, you know, The Mandalorian season 2 had a bunch of backdoor pilots. So it was, you know, the Ahsoka show, the Book of Boba, you know, all these different backdoor pilots are, like, popping up everywhere. And
which is super funny given that one of those shows is not going to be made anymore.
Right.
So exactly. The backdoor pilot stuff from that is just loosely hanging on there. Although right. I will say something about that show a little bit later in the episode.
Up next, in one of the coolest cities / space stations ever, Din delivers his bounty and collects some information. He heads to an alley where he discovers that the covert is still around with only the armor and Paz Vizsla left. They tend to his wounds, and she tells Mando a bit about the history of the Darksaber.
So that's a fucking Halo. Y'all are giving me blank looks.
There's a not passing resemblance of the cool space ring to the video game franchise Halo.
Yeah, that's like I watched it and I saw it. Like, I had two thoughts. My first thought was, oh, it's the Halo, and my second thought was, isn't that also like the Citadel from Mass Effect? I don't know. I only played Mass Effect 1.
I don't know any of that stuff. All I was thinking of was that one episode of Clone Wars where there's like a halo around the planet and it's like a space station.
Bradley, you're too young for Halo to be relevant to you.
It's a popular design aesthetic because essentially it's what if the Ring of Saturn, but all metal and people lived on it?
Right.
And you just remove the planet from the center. So I did see like quite a few fandom menace people bitching about how Kathleen Kennedy's ruined the Book of Boba Fett because it's just Halo. And I was like, guys, like this design is not solely unique to Halo. It's like a pretty popular space station designed from lots of shit.
Lots of stuff. I'm pretty sure this was in Interstellar. There's a similar one in that movie, which there's the Bryce Dallas Howard connection right there. but because there's in that movie at the end, there's a space station that like he goes to at the very, sorry, spoiler if you haven't seen Interstellar for some reason. But he goes to a space station at the end, which is a giant like ring like structure, just like this.
Yeah, that was immediately my first thought upon seeing it was, oh, that's a Halo. And then I realized, oh my God, it's been literal decades since Halo was relevant. Oh boy. I have a soft spot in my soul for one-shots or for oneers. So seeing one in this episode made me so happy. And I didn't even realize until halfway through the scene, oh, this camera hasn't cut. Did y'all notice that the scene where he goes up to do the information, gets in the elevator and gets out, that's all one shot?
I love me a good long take, but I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. I can recognize it.
Yeah, it took me, like, I realized it halfway through. And so the second one, I was like super watching, like just to make sure I wasn't going crazy. And nope.
Do you want a film fun fact?
I would love a film fun fact.
The average length of a Michael Bay shot across all of his movies is 3 seconds.
That's way
so
short.
Wow.
Every 3 seconds per average on a Michael Bay movie, it's cutting to a new shot.
In fairness, that is the attention span of most straight men.
Well, he came from commercials, and that's how you film a commercial.
Right.
And he got famous for doing these really cinematic movie level quality commercials. Well, then he just does that in his actual movies now. So that's a little fun movie fact for you.
Yeah, I like Bryce's style a little bit better here.
Yeah. She's good at what she does.
There's a one no cut scene in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that I've seen that was really fun. It was the fight scene. A lot of times it's used for either fight scenes or walking through, like the one in Goodfellas is brought up by horrible, pretentious film nerds all the time.
The hallway fight in Daredevil is probably my favorite long take. It's a remarkably choreographed fight, and the fact that it is all one long take in one hallway is just remarkable to me.
Couple of little fun alien facts from this sequence. I was real fast Googling something that I had forgotten to check while I was prepping for this episode. The alien that's in the elevator with Den is called a Cascadag, and they were previously seen. I thought we had never seen this alien before, but they're actually in Force Awakens, Last Jedi, 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, and 3 other episodes of Book of Boba Fett.
Oh my God. Love to see a sequel Alien. Love that.
I do love to see a sequel Alien. However, the thing I was looking up, because I thought that the person that Den is talking to was something called an Ongri, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. They're not. They're an Ishi-Tib, is what they are. They're all over the place, but I don't think we've seen them. Yes, Andy is making like
a
beak motions in the Zoom call.
It's like a frog with a beak.
Yeah.
Gross.
They have been seen in the Star Wars The Clone Wars and in Revenge of the Sith, but they mainly show up in like comic books and
just video games. They're a skin in some of the Battlefront games and shit.
Yeah, so they've been around. We just haven't visually seen them a lot.
Nice.
That's our fun alien fact for the day. I have in my notes, oh no, it's the armorer. It's my reaction to seeing her again.
Oh, I had a better note, and it was, hell yeah, it's the armorer.
Who doesn't love an evil lesbian?
I know.
It's true. It's true.
Show me.
I love women, so.
Show me a straight woman who blacksmiths. Come on now.
That is true. I have been going off on Twitter for weeks about how Avar Chris has been doing nothing wrong in the High Republic comics, and I fully support her. And I support actually even just women in general. Like, I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs. Truly, I do.
Emma Frost is one of my favorite comic book bitches. So, like, yeah, I'm right there with you.
Just love an evil lady, you know?
Yeah, more lady villains, please. We talk on the show about how we love lady villains. More lady villains.
Mm-hmm.
What I found really interesting was so many people reacting to her this episode and being like, yeah, fuck Sabine for giving Bo-Katan the Darksaber. She cursed Mandalore. And I'm like, excuse me, Sabine Wren didn't do anything wrong ever in her whole life, one. And two, you're believing the armorer, the like mustache twirling, like cult leader, like Reverend Stryker motherfucker. Like, you're believing her over everything else we've ever been seeing about Mandalorians? Like, come on now.
She's got Mandalorian spikes on her helmet. Like, yeah. Come on.
That's true. We can't trust her. We don't really know what she's saying.
Everything she said this episode, I fully believe is just wrong. Like, I don't think she said one thing that was accurate.
It was all shrouded in like this grandiose religiosity, I guess is the word that I could use for it. Like when she's shitting on Bo-Katan in a later scene that we'll get to, it's all couched in this like, Mandalore was cursed because she went away from the way. And it's like, if you don't like Bo-Katan, just say you don't like Bo-Katan.
Some mean girl shit.
Yeah. It's almost like they're like, she knew her in high school or something like that. And like, Bo-Katan bullied her. And then so she's like holding a grudge against Bo-Katan, where she's like, I hated her so much.
Didn't even asks at one point about, you know, the fall of Mandalore and whatnot, and the armorer says that only Mandalorians who followed the way survived. Everyone else died because yada yada yada. Mandalore was weak. The Kreeses ruined it, and it's like, bitch, we saw Casca Wolves and like we saw Bo-Katan's whole clique last season, girl. Like, we know that's not true. Like,
even if Sabine wasn't even if we didn't know out of universe that Sabine was coming back for the Ahsoka show, like, Din, you've met other Mandalorians.
Yeah.
You've met 3.5 other Mandalorians. Like, calm down.
Yes. So like, there's just tons of yellow and red flags that like she is either purposefully lying or she's just wrong about a ton of shit. And the audience has the context clues to like pick up on that if they're looking for it.
I found the statement, oh man, everybody makes such a big deal of the Empire and it was only around for 30 years. Very funny.
Oh, that was great.
Just as a Legends fan, I found it to be very funny because this has been one of my consistent complaints with Legends, especially the pre-Empire stuff, wanted to treat things in these broad swaths of hundreds or thousands of years. And the biggest deal was made about the Galactic Empire, which was around for 30, which I find super hilarious. Like, it was barely a footnote. When you have things like, oh, the Sith Empire lasted for 3,000 years or whatever, and it's like, well, then why would anybody care about this other empire? Especially since in the Legends timeline, they basically put the Republic back and it's basically the same and continues working.
To that, I will say, like, we're all gays. How long was Reagan president? 8 years? And like, every major problem that our country is facing right now, I think can pretty easily be traced back to the Reagan administration. And so like, if you had given Reagan 30 years, like, how much could he have fucked things up? Pretty bad. So, you know, 30 years is a long term in like one really
affect
shitty
everything.
dude's hands.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about it that way. It's like, yeah, exactly. And this is one thing that I love about the sequels as opposed to the old Legends timeline. Because the old Legends timeline, it really did all just kind of go back to normal. And the sequels is like, especially like some of the supplementary material around that, like Claudia Gray's Bloodline, showing that like, no, actually, you can't just put things back to normal after the Empire has spent 30 years fucking up the entire galaxy.
If you haven't read Bloodlines, my little pitch, dear listener, is there's a scene where Leia is meeting in a conservative politician's office. He's a young, handsome, conservative politician, and he happens to be a history buff who collects Galactic Empire memorabilia and puts it on display in his office. And Leia is like fucking furious that there's like Moff uniforms and Imperial Guard helmets like in pristine condition on his shelves and shit. And she's like, these fuckers blew up my planet, like fuck you, and is like frothing at the mouth. And it's like, yes, Leia, get him.
No, this book is so good.
So
this book is
go
so
read
good.
Bloodlines. It's very good.
Yeah, Bradley, maybe you can get the audiobook version of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's so good. Like,
it's just older Leia being badass the whole time. It's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like the whole book showing just how like the politics of the galaxy is changing, but also on a personal level, how people are relating to each other. And like this guy is like, he was never really harmed by the Empire. I don't even think he was really around for it.
He was like 5 or 6.
He was like 5 or 6, so he doesn't really remember it. So he sees nothing wrong with collecting like these scout trooper helmets and things. And Leia walks into his office. It's like, what the fuck? I used to fight these so you could have this office.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with you? It's such a good scene. It's such a good book. Also pair up with Resistance Reborn, finishing out that storyline to a certain extent. It's good. The sequel trilogy books are actually really good. I did like how they mentioned that Tar Vizsla forges the Darksaber 1,000 years ago, because I will be pedantic about this until the day I die. In Rebels, they specifically say that the Jedi Temple was sacked during the fall of the Old Republic. And that's when the Mandalorians stole the Darksaber back. Which means that sometime in the last 1,000 years, the Old Republic fell and became the Galactic Republic. It's that recent.
Another Tar Vizsla fact, this was pointed out by my co-host Ryan. To date, the only point where Tar Vizsla was referred to as Mandalore was a Forces of Destiny short. And now this episode. So in Rebels, he's only said to have been a Mandalorian and a Jedi. And then it was a Forces of Destiny short that said he was Mandalore and a Jedi. And then to pick up that continuity this episode, someone had to have watched that Forces of Destiny short, which I think is just really cool.
That someone probably being Dave Filoni.
Well, yeah.
Dave Filoni has probably just watched and read everything.
Everything.
No, I thought that was a really interesting line when they were talking about, oh, was it forged 1,000 years ago? And I'm like, the Old Republic transition to the Galactic Republic, because it always irks me when things like Mandalorian Season 2 conflate the Old Republic with the Galactic Republic. And it's like, no, they're two different time periods. And now we have like the High Republic in the middle of that, also stand the High Republic. It's very gay.
You have to think though, like, who of these people are like fucking history teachers? Like I studied like ancient history with like Rome and early Christianity and stuff like that and Israel, but like 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 1,000, like once you get to a certain point, unless you're like a history buff, like how long ago did Jesus live? Like, I don't, like who cares? So they're probably like, oh, Tar Vizsla like 1,000 years ago. The High Republic, the Old Republic.
Yeah, it's like the same time.
There is a guy in another one of Claudia Gray's books who's like a Clone Wars historian living during the Empire. This is another plug to read more stuff by Claudia Gray.
Next up, Paz and Din put together the forge when the armorer tells Din he must destroy the Beskar spear. During this, she gives us a brief history of Bo-Katan, and we see the Night of Thousand Tears. Mando helps weld Grogu a gift.
So I definitely, when he said Moff Gideon will face justice for his crimes, in my head went, narrator voice, he would not face justice for his crimes.
Can't waste that actor. He's so good.
Right, a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Even if he does think Moff Gideon's first name is Moff, which I find very funny. I brought this up before, like, people on Twitter were like shitting on him for this one interview where he was referring to him as Moff. And like, does he think that's his first name? And I'm like, okay, first of all, you cannot expect everyone who's involved in a Star Wars to like be an ultra nerd about it. It's nice when they are, but you can't expect them to be. And second of all, the man is a fucking legend. Like, leave him alone. If dude wants to say that Moff Gideon's first name is Moff, his first name is Moff. He's just really appropriately named.
Also, like, English isn't his first language too. So like, how, like, you know, like, is this a Star Wars word, or is this like his name, like Luke is like Luke's name? You know, like, I feel like when someone's speaking multiple languages, you can give them a pass for like a really forgivable flub like that. It's easy to not be a dick.
It is, but you know what? This is Star Wars Twitter. We don't know what not being a dick is. We see the chance to be a dick and we immediately pod race directly into it because we are the worst.
So Din in this scene asking the armorer about Bo-Katan really felt like when a gay person is trying to get the feel of either a family member before they come out, or maybe after they've met a new friend, and they're like, "Hey, what do you think of that Jeopardy player, Amy? You know, she just won a bunch of Jeopardy, huh? Like, oh, she's trans, yeah, huh? What do you think about trans people, huh?" Or like, you know, like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on Elton John? Like, do you like Elton John? Have you seen the movie The Birdcage? What do you think about that? And it's, oh, Bo-Katan, yeah. What do you know about Bo-Katan? Yeah, strange. Yeah, she takes her helmet off. Yeah, I haven't taken my helmet off, but like, yeah, it's weird that she takes her helmet off. I love that interpretation of that scene, because now that you mentioned it, it is basically like, and the answer that the armorer gives is so fucking warped too. Mm-hmm.
Like, you can obviously tell that she's like couching this answer in like her Mandalorian Creed doctrine of like, oh, because she accepted the Darksaber without combat, that was bad, and also her family was bad by moving us away from the Mandalorian thing. Because something that doesn't get brought up enough, I feel like, especially in the wake of season 2, this is like a splinter group of Death Watch. That, like, you could look at them and go, oh, neat, Mandalorians. Very specifically, these are people who were too extreme for Death Watch.
Bo was Death Watch, like, ride or die. She was hardcore Death Watch.
Bo did the war crimes.
Yeah, a lot of war crimes. So we know that Din was rescued by people in Death Watch armor. We know that she's got the Mandalorian helmet, and a Vizsla is with them. So like, yeah, this is Death Watch through and through. And of course she would hate Bo-Katan, because Bo-Katan splintered off from Death Watch.
Yeah, and one thing too about the sequence of this scene, you mentioned the spear earlier, the Beskar spear. And I said put a pin in that. We will come back to that in later on. Well, now we're going to take the pen out of that, because the second time I watched the scene, I went, oh, she's manipulating the fuck out of him to destroy this spear.
Right.
She doesn't want this spear to exist, because her reasons are real flimsy. Because she's like, you know, the idea that there's a Beskar weapon that, one, is a threat to me because it can pierce our Beskar armor, which does not make sense on a physics level. I'm pretty sure, but okay, sure, go off, I guess. But she's also like, oh, it's like an affront, it's an abomination, it shouldn't exist. Let's get rid of it. The Darksabers, the Darksaber's better for you anyway. Like,
I thought she was going to stab him with it. I was like, oh, it's duel time right now. And I was wrong. She did not. She did melt it down. But yeah, bummer to see it go.
It's very like, you're not really gay. You'll find a nice woman eventually.
Yeah, she was being super sus about it, though. You were totally right.
She had some reason for wanting this thing gone, and maybe it genuinely was like it conflicted with her beliefs about the Mandalorian Creed, and then she is kind of pushing him to get rid of it, which I do not like the armor very much.
Yeah, what's funny is watching this scene made me think like, I think she might be the actual villain of season 3. Like, I think they were tricking us this whole time into thinking like, oh, it's Moff Gideon is the villain of the Mandalorian. And it's like, I don't think so. I think maybe the armorer is the overarching villain of the whole entire show. Like, it's like, why is she so manipulative?
So back in season 2, I thought for sure that she was going to be the main villain of Din's story. After watching this, I was talking to Ryan about it, co-host Ryan, and he thinks that she might still be working with the Pikes because Death Watch and the Pikes had an alliance in the Clone Wars, and that she might be like causing all of the shitstorm on Tatooine too, which who knows? I think that's a wild theory, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
No, I mean, it is because last week I brought up the fact that like, hey, maybe the way that they connect into the Boba story is that the covert is hiding on Tatooine is what I kind of came up with. And I think now that you say that, it's kind of like, maybe her real plan was never to be like, do this, do that, or whatever. It's like, let's restart Mandalore on Tatooine and like make this the new hub for all Mandalorians, or like at least the correct Mandalorians.
Yeah, if your cult got wiped out and you need to recruit a bunch of new members and you need like money, selling space heroin,
that would
do it.
I'll do it.
And I have another sort of perspective on it, because if you look at it in terms of, well, Den has the Darksaber now, and Den is also like met with Bo-Katan, and like he's very clearly trending in a direction of Den might actually be instrumental to bringing Mandalore back. If he doesn't do it in the specific way that the armorer wants, that's going to be a problem for her. And we see in this episode that she exerts a lot of influence over him, but he's also trying, he may not even realize it, to break free from that influence. And that's going to be a conflict. Den is somebody who's found himself in a position to make decisions on behalf of Mandalore, and he's got a bunch of people on different sides trying to influence that decision. He's got the armorer, he's got Bo-Katan, he's got Moff Gideon, and Din's like, man, I just want to go home and watch The Equalizer and play with my kid. Like, I don't want to be here doing this. Why are you asking me this?
We see her exerting a lot of soft power and hard power over him this episode and in these scenes, but we also see Din pushing back quite a bit. We like him fishing for her opinion on Bo-Katan is definitely him questioning things, and then him standing up for himself with the decision to not kill Gideon, things like that. Like we see Din taking small rebellious steps in this faith community that he knows he's maybe not welcome in anymore yet, and he's not willing to fully come to terms with it yet. But we see him like sowing those seeds, which are going to get kind of against his will brought up in the next scene.
A couple of little minor notes before we talk about the big thing that I personally am dying to talk about. Once again, the mythosaur is mentioned, further lending credence to my theory that the series will end with Din Djarin riding a mythosaur, possibly alongside Boba Fett. riding his Rancor, which would be the most awesome thing. And then we get a little more information on like what's actually in the Creed. Bradley, you and I were talking a lot about like what's in the Creed exactly,
Right.
like what's actually in it. We get a little more information, and we also find out what the way actually is. The Mandalorian Creed apparently is big on like loyalty and solidarity, which makes sense looking at like Sabine's storyline from Rebels and the storyline in the Clone Wars. It makes a lot of sense, but it also makes sense how that could be perverted and taken to religious extremes by the Armorer and her cult. So I thought that was really interesting that he directly says loyalty and solidarity are the way. And he also makes a point that it's the opposite of the Jedi. Mandalorians are all about attachment. The Jedi are all about you need to be able to let go, which as we see in this episode, Din can't let go. Yeah, so let's talk about the Night of 1,000 Tears. Andy, how are you feeling over there, having just watched all of the Mandalorian stuff? How are you feeling watching fucking Sundari blow up?
So I was feeling very vindicated, if only because Ryan and I had a fierce debate about when the Night of 1,000 Tears took place. And he was pretty insistent that it had to have happened directly after the Siege of Mandalore. And I was very insistent that it had to have happened after Clone Wars season, or after Rebels season 4. So it's pretty clear I was right and he was wrong. And that's all I care about. Fuck Mandalore, fuck those people, fuck them kids. I was right, Ryan was wrong. It's a good day for me.
The important thing is, can you have a moment to gloat to something about something to your podcast co-host?
Yeah.
Can I take this as an opportunity to shit on the person I talk to for multiple hours a week?
I was right about the atrocity, and that's all that matters.
Congratulations on being correct about the war crimes.
Well, we've been dancing around this Night of 1,000 Tears for quite a while now, and we know that people seem to think that Mandalore is inhospitable now. So we knew something bad had to have happened, and seeing it in like a horror Terminator shot with the fucking K2 droids walking and the fucking drone bots flying overhead and the bombers. It's really horrific looking. Very, very scary, very spooky.
It's also like one of the most beautiful and horrifying shots in Star Wars I've ever seen. Like, it's so pretty, like, and disturbing at the same time.
Yeah, all the like mushroom clouds, like coming up.
It like they managed to capture the horror of wanton slaughter in just a few shots from just how Bryce Dallas Howard was able to visually show it in this episode. And like they don't have to show you all these people dying. You just have to see Sundari blow up. And your first thought is, oh, Death Star looking thing go boom. And then you're like, oh shit, that was a city.
Well, and it's only droids because we know the surface, people can't live on it now. And so it's just these droids carrying out the rest of this slaughter and this genocide because the surface has been completely
like
wiped out.
If you look at it like on the ground, it looks like there's like small settlements and stuff outside of Sundari, or it might be like there's settlements or something outside there that they bomb outside and then they blow up Sundari. That did irk me a little bit because you're not supposed to be able to live out there. But we see in Rebels, you can breathe out there. It's not a question of inhospitable. It's just nothing's there.
No, I was talking about in Mandalore in the Mandalorian at some point, Din, they talk about the planet, and Din is like, no one can live on Mandalore anymore. It's been completely destroyed by the Empire, and people can't like go there now. And we see in the Night of 1,000 Tears, it's only droids.
Fucking nukes on it.
Yeah, it's only droids walking around because I'm assuming even the stormtroopers wouldn't have been able to like survive the devastation that the Empire did.
I didn't even realize. I just went, oh, those are the K2 droids. I know what that is. And I didn't even realize, oh, they dropped nukes on it. And that thing is radioactive. That's just a big ball of radioactivity at this point. Like, that's extremely fucked up, actually. What the fuck, Galactic Empire?
Yeah, and you wonder why they were so influential for 30 years. There
They're
you
the
go.
baddies.
Yeah, it's almost like the fascist regime is bad, actually. Like, that's the point of it.
Right.
That's the fucking point. So yeah, Bradley, I did check your bingo card, and you can cross Mandalore off of your bingo card. And
what's shocking is
you can also cross Mandalore off of existing.
Right. I was gonna say I wasn't expecting this episode to check that box off, which is strange because we definitely got it in a different way than I was expecting. But hey, I'll take it. That's totally fine. Now all I need is little baby Jabba Jr. Stinky to show up, and I got a bingo. So
you got close.
This close to a bingo.
Close.
Which is hilarious because, again, one of the most random ones on my bingo card that I thought I was never really going to get. And I thought some of the other ones were such softballs compared to this one. I thought this was like one of those really hard ones that I was never going to get. But it's like, okay, like, let's do it.
Yeah, I noticed your placement of it. It's in like the second to the left from the bottom. It's like, it's in a place that you wouldn't expect it to get hit. And they're like, nope, we're zapping Mandalore, which is pretty amazing.
Getting them.
Yeah, as somebody who's been revisiting Mandalore through various means, I watched through Rebels with my boyfriend again. I've been listening to about 800,000 podcasts, many of them discussing Mandalore. The moment I saw them detonate Sundari, like, I audibly gasped. And you need to understand that I stayed up to watch this episode during what is probably one of the most stressful weeks I've had in a very long time. So it wasn't eliciting a lot of reactions from me, but that one was an audible gasp. Just because, holy shit. I thought TIE bombers were cool, but now I am terrified of them. I am absolutely terrified of them. The last note I have for this sequence is, well, I have two. I was wondering what the armor was making for Grogu, because we never actually see it. But then I was also noticing that the little bag she ties up looks like a little Grogu.
Yeah, it was really cute. I think they focus on it more on the plane ride and a couple scenes from now, but it does look like his head. It's adorable. I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but then we do kind of see what they're making because we see the little chains dropping when she's making stuff. So like you said before, Andy, that it was the chain, he's getting like a little chain mail or something. I thought
little mithril shirt.
Right. I thought when they were first making the thing, I thought he was going to make him like a little lightsaber hilt. But then I was like, oh, wait, she wouldn't make him a weapon because she had just said that it was a weapon. So you can't make a weapon out of Beskar. So I thought that was weird. I thought maybe that was
lightsaber hilt would have been cool.
I thought that's what it was going to be. But then I was like, well, wait, there's no crystal. So how the fuck is he going to give him a lightsaber? So I don't know. It would be interesting if he gives him the crystal to the Darksaber as his lightsaber. But that wouldn't really, like, I don't know if that necessarily would like fit with the, like, you know, he's cute and everything. But
give Grogu the Darksaber.
Right.
Or Grogu like force pulls the Darksaber to him, and technically that's winning it in combat. So now Grogu is the ruler of Mandalore.
Up next, Mando practices sparring with the Darksaber until Paz Vizsla challenges him to a duel. Din wins the duel, thus keeping his saber, but admits he removed his helmet and isn't welcome back to the covert. The armorer says that the only way to repent is to baptize himself on Mandalore, thus giving us some of the plot to Mando Season 3.
I didn't check, but I'm pretty sure that's Mandoa that they're speaking when she's like calling out, like maybe their numbers or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have a complicated relationship with Mandoa because, as previously stated, I do not care for Karen Traviss in the slightest, especially her writing and what she came up with for the Mandalorians. I do, however, think Mandoa sounds very cool.
We've scrubbed every other bit of her contribution to Star Wars. Like, if all that survives of her work is Mandoa in the new canon, I guess I'm fine with it. But I would have even been fine if they made up a new language for them.
I do love the line, persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. Just, I love that line in general.
The training fight is really fun. And this idea that like lightsabers do have weight to them, and as you spiritually connect and like center yourself, the crystal gets lighter. Like, that's some good shit that Rebels established, and to see that like continue into live action, especially with someone who, as far as we know, is not force sensitive, learning to use a lightsaber. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna.
It also leads credence to the fact that, like, I guess some people bring up the fact sometimes, like, well, why can't anybody just have a lightsaber? And that answers that question, like, because they literally physically cannot hold it because they don't have the connection with the crystal.
And we see, every time we see somebody who is not a Jedi wielding a lightsaber, it is very clumsy and haphazard. Like, Han Solo uses it in Empire Strikes Back, and it feels like he's so weird holding it. Like, he doesn't quite know how to hold it. Cian Holt in the Trail of Shadows issue that just came out. Spoilers for Trail of Shadows #4 if you haven't read it. But Cian Holt briefly wields a lightsaber, and like, she's basically just flailing it around. Like, girl, I love you, but you do not have finesse with that thing.
I think the lightsaber fight between Old Ben and Vader is perfectly fine. I think it serves its purpose in the narrative. I'm not one of those people that's like, why isn't this more badass? But if you needed a reason for why it wasn't more badass, it's because both Vader and Ben are completely thrown out of balance by seeing each other again, and therefore their lightsabers are heavier and they're moving slower.
Interesting. I would have never thought of it that way.
I love the contrast to Sabine, who, as she trains with Kanan, the Darksaber gets lighter. That as she continues to train and connect with it, she gets lighter. And Den, as he trains, it gets heavier because he's fighting against it. The Darksaber is almost alive in a way, which we know Kyber crystals are alive to an extent. It's everybody else saw that Paz Vizsla was going to try to claim the Darksaber coming, right?
Oh yeah.
100%.
The second they were talking about how it was like his family, his ancestor was the one who fucking created the damn thing. And he was like, maybe I should take that back.
Yep.
It's amazing how these helmets, there's no expression, but like as he tilts his head, you can like you can read emotions into it. And it's like, oh, that fucker's hungry.
He's like, oh, he's about to do what every Vizsla voiced by Jon Favreau has done and go for the fucking Darksaber. Yeah, that was obvious. Good fight.
Yeah.
Great fight. Fun. I need to confess some brain rot here to you. So there's this very emotional scene where Den reveals that he took his helmet off and he is cast out of the covert, and it's a very traumatic moment for him because truly it is the moment where he has lost everything. He has lost Grogu, his real family that accepts him, and now he has lost the covert, his weird religious pseudo family that is not a good environment for him. But the only thing I could think of was that Paz Vizsla used the word apostate. And I went, oh God, not Din Djarin, Blood Mage from Dragon Age. Yes, Andy is wearing a mage rights activist shirt in the Zoom call. The word apostate, my brain rot immediately said, and I went, oh my God, not Din Djarin and Anders parallels. Please don't pull in Anders, Din. I love you too much for that.
I love Dragon Age. I met my fiance through Dragon Age cosplay. Yeah, Dragon Age rules. So yeah, when Apostate got thrown out there, my brain did immediately like flash to the Dragon Age games.
Yeah, it's amazing how you see a word again out of context and you're just like, oh, I am immediately thinking of this other thing. And like, I could go off all day about the Dragon Age Star Wars comparisons, but I definitely know, because I knew Andy was a fan of Dragon Age, that I had to bring up. My immediate thought was, oh, Din Djarin's on the run from the Circle. Probably should look out for those Templars there, buddy.
Circles suck.
The Circles were bad, and Vivian was wrong. And expect to hear me bitch more about Vivian during the Obi-Wan Kenobi show when Indira Varma shows up, where I will complain at length about this character from Dragon Age that I absolutely despise. Fuck Vivian. That's my PSA.
This scene hit me square in the feels as someone who has a lot of religious trauma with my gender and sexuality, and I used to be a pastor before I came out, and so this idea of being part of a faith community and like having to keep part of yourself a secret, and Din knowing that like if he gets asked directly, he won't be able to lie, but he's not going to bring it up himself. Like that really hit home. And then like his worst fear is realized, and he's direct asked, like, have you removed your helmet? And he can't bring like the shame of it. He can't bring himself to answer it, but he can't lie either. So he's just like awkwardly standing there, and like his silence is, you know, enough to damn him and excommunicate him for it. And just the vitriol that Vizsla, you know, calls him an apostate. It was just like, oh, my gay heart, and this religious trauma on this good Mando boy.
We know from the first season of The Mandalorian that this is just kind of a thing they do. And in retrospect, it takes on a much darker meaning, because we realize now that it's essentially a regular purity test that she does. It's like meant to be like an affirmation to the group of, yes, I am loyal to the group, and I have always done things the correct way. And I am feeling good about having done things the correct way. And when he can't answer that he's done things the correct way, the immediate response on their part is kicking him out. And like what got me was when she says, you're not a Mandalorian anymore. And he's like, his next response is he's desperate to be like, okay, but how do I fix this? How do I get forgiveness? How do I undo this? She gives him this like impossible task. She's like, you've got to go bathe yourself in the waters of Mandalore. Okay, Mandalore's of all like fucking radioactive rock, and you know it is. You know he can't do that.
Right.
But you're so committed to your beliefs over someone that you literally raised from childhood. What the fuck, the armorer? That's not cool.
The desperation to like find a way back in and tell yourself that there's a way back in is very real. After I came out and I left my church and I moved away, I checked out a couple of churches down in Maryland, which is where I moved to, and I started semi going to one, and the people I had made friends with knew I was gay, but no one else did. And then I showed up one Sunday and I knew everyone knew. I knew that everyone knew I was gay. And just the energy was totally different. The way everyone was looking at me was totally different. The way everyone talked to me was totally different. I was like, oh shit, I'm not safe here. And it turns out I wasn't. And I got the fuck out because they tried to cast a gay demon out of me after locking me in a room. Evangelicals are weird. So like Din desperately trying to be like, how do I get back in? It's just like, no, honey, no, like you're good. Go back to your gay friends who take their helmets off. Like you can be a Mandalorian over there. They're chill. But like I also totally get the like I'm going to keep trying to like make this work until I know it can't. And like that moment happened for me. I knew I could not make it work after that, and I never went back to any church. And like Din is going to have that moment with this cult. He's going to have that moment of like me trying to fit into the box that they say I have to belong in will never ever work. And if they can't accept the shape that I am, then like fuck it.
Yeah, absolutely. And after this sequence, I said earlier, but I'll reiterate, like Din really does have nothing at this point. He's lost Grogu. He went back to the Mandalorians, and now the Mandalorians are rejecting him. So like a question that he's going to have to ask himself going into Mando season 3. And I'm kind of glad we got this out of the way here. I think Book of Boba suffers for it, but I think Mando season 3 will be stronger for it. The underlying question of Mando season 3 is going to be, who is Din Djarin when he's not a part of this Mandalorian covert and he's not Grogu's parent?
And what do you do when you're a gay single dad and your kid has gone off to charter school and you've just gotten kicked out of your cult and your cowboy boyfriend is busy protecting his town? You go buy a hot rod.
Truly. You go
when
and
you got nothing, you go buy a goddamn fucking hot rod.
You go and buy a hot rod, and then you take a job from your lesbian friend who is way more put together than you are.
Oh my
Let's
God.
be real. Stand up real fast. Is that fucking Grogu on your shirt?
Yes.
Love it.
How did I go an hour and 23 minutes into podcast recording before I noticed that you had fucking Grogu on your shirt?
Yeah, it's my Mandalorian shirt.
Oh my goodness.
But I tie-dyed it with bleach, so it's like a different, pattern.
Wow.
So.
Wow. I need psychiatric help or sleep, or probably just sleep. Wow. All right, go ahead and take us into the next sequence.
Once Mando leaves the covert, he must go through airport security. His public transport ship lands on Tatooine. Here, Pelimoto returns with a cute new droid and tells Mando she found a replacement for the Razor Crest.
Gee, there sure are a lot of passenger ships popping up in Book of Boba Fett. I wonder if Disney is piloting a new passenger ship related thing.
I'm telling you, dude, if they would just include the same exact fucking one for just, it doesn't even have to be on screen for more than a second. You could literally just be like 30 seconds of like, wow, that was such a great time I had on I think the ship's going to be called like the Hakon or something.
The Halcyon. It's called the Halcyon.
Okay, literally you could have that be in canon, like have someone get off of that ship and be like, that was the best experience I've ever had on a transport ship. That's all they have to say. And then be like, oh shit, we can go on the one that was in Book of Boba. Let's do that.
I don't have much to say here, but I do love the trope of you have to put all your weapons in this bin, and then it's like a 30-second sequence of someone removing way too many weapons.
Yep.
That gets me every time. I love that gag. And Pelimoto's great.
I thought, honest to God, that Din was going to miss the flight. Like he was going to take so long disembarking his weapons,
right,
that the ship was going to take off without him. And he was going to put the last one in there and the door was going to close. I honestly thought that's where the gag was going.
It's pretty funny.
So Bradley, I have a bone to pick with you about something you just said. You said new droid, which is technically correct in that it is a new droid for Pelimoto. But a BD series unit is not a new droid overall.
Now you're just doing semantics. Okay.
I am, mostly for an excuse to yell at you.
Because the little tappy dance?
Okay, so BD1 is the little droid from Fallen Order. And fun fact, actually, and this is canon. This is 100% canon. The BD in BD1 actually stand for best droid. That's not actually canon, but I am insisting that it is. And one day I will get Matt Martin to agree with me on Twitter, and then I will be right.
Well, what's funny is I saw this droid and I knew what it was because I knew that you like the character or whatever from Fallen Order, and I know that he has this droid. And I was like, when I saw this, I like for one hot second, I thought he was going to show up in this scene for some reason.
I would lose my goddamn mind if I got Cameron Monaghan on screen as Cal Kestis in
They got the actor. He looks exactly the same. Like
he's right there. Like maybe he'll show up in Kenobi. I don't know.
So, well, how would it work? How would it work? Like how old he is? Like, so how old is he in Fallen? Like what timeline? Like how does that work?
They would have to, they'd have to age him up. So it'd have to be like older Cal Kestis in the Mandalorian time period.
Fallen Order takes place a few years before Rogue One. And you can kind of judge the timeline based on how old Saw Gerrera is in it.
It's, I want to say like 5 or 6 BBY maybe, like around Rebels season 1, maybe a little before Rebels season 1. I would have to check.
He's like a young lad during Order 66, and then this feels like 10 to like 13 years after that.
So would you say he's in his teens? Like he's a teen, like 16?
He's like a young adult. He's like maybe in his 20s.
Oh, okay.
I actually have the timeline of Canon Media bookmarked because I am an insane person.
I hate time in Star Wars. It doesn't exist, and trying to fit it all in a timeline is bad. It's really bad. Because people are like, oh, well, the Clone Wars is 3 years. It's only 3 years because when they said it was 3 years, and it's like there's no way the Clone Wars as a whole was a 3-year-long conflict, because Anakin is a knight by the time he has Ahsoka, but he is a Padawan at the start of the Clone Wars. So that means substantial stuff had to take place before he got knighted. And then he's a knight for some time on his own before he gets Ahsoka. So you mean to tell me that he had Ahsoka as his Padawan for only 2 years?
So
Jedi
Fallen Order, I have the answer. Jedi Fallen Order takes place in 14 BBY. It is approximately 9 years before the events of Star Wars Rebels.
Okay.
And it is about 5 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith.
He seems so little during Order 66, and he seems so much older by the game. See, this is why time is dumb in Star Wars. Time is dumb in Star Wars. Events take as long as they need to for emotional impact and thematic growth.
There you go. Well, that's what I'm saying. So can the actor still play him in theoretically the Ahsoka show?
You could age him up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, do you even have to age him up? Just say he's 40. You know what I mean? Because clearly Bo-Katan is 70 or whatever the fuck she is in this show.
Exactly. So, time doesn't matter. Throw a beard on him if you have to, but you don't even have to.
Oh yeah, there you go. Give him facial hair that shows age. So then there you go. You could be like, oh, he's got facial hair, so he must be older.
Yeah.
Give him a scar.
Oh my god. Yeah, if fucking Cal Kestis shows up, and I honestly thought he was going to show up in the Bad Batch when we were going to Braca, and the Bad Batch is just like the cameo show all the way down. I thought Cal Kestis was going to show up as one of the scrappers on Braca, and then they didn't do it.
He was my top pick for Grogu daycare. I thought for sure he was going to be the Jedi who showed up to get Grogu.
Interesting.
Yeah, Cameron Monaghan, call me. I know you're straight, but you can still call me.
He's an actor.
That is true. That is true. He is an actor. We know what Tom Hardy said about actors.
Actors are like X-Men. They're all kind of flexible.
Oh God, I hope so. Anyway, moving on.
Right.
Bradley, how are you feeling there, buddy, with the N1 Naboo starfighter?
Holy and shit. I mean, when I saw that thing, first of all, whose idea was this to include this beautiful, beautiful ship from my childhood into this fucking show? Like, who do I need to thank? Who do I need to write a letter to? Dear Mr. Royal Hampton, thank you for putting this in Star Wars.
God, and it's love for the Phantom Menace too. There's so many Phantom Menace references in the back half of this episode that it's just like a love letter to this movie. Like,
it's so meta too, because you even have pit droids putting it together. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Like,
I didn't even realize the pit droids were, yeah, because they're just a thing that exists in the universe.
Right. And so now they're putting it together.
It's really good. It's really, really good.
One last thing I had for this scene was the Bryce Dallas Howard connection. Ha ha ha.
Are you going to get it right this time?
This time I have it right because...
Savage.
It's a Jurassic Park reference.
Yeah, welcome to Gold Squadron Gays.
It's a Jurassic Park reference. I love how the Pelimoto is being attacked by something. We don't see what it is. You see it in the artwork at the end, what the thing was that was causing all this ruckus in her shop that they're all so afraid of. And it looks like a giant fucking womp rat.
And then she eats it.
Of course she
does. Honestly, and this is one of the two other notes I had for this sequence up to where the montage starts. One is just let Amy Sedaris mug in this character for a while, because honestly, every time she's allowed to go off, it is the funniest shit I've seen in ages.
So good.
My final note is I love that we get references to the Phantom Menace and the Last Jedi in the same sequence. That is just personally designed to make me happy. John, I know you listen to the show, so thank you for doing that. It almost makes up for the flamethrower in episode 1 of Book of Boba Fett. Almost, but not quite.
And then, of course, the inevitable flamethrower in the finale as well. That'll happen.
Fuck me. God. The fucking flamethrower. Shit's gonna show up in the finale, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm already seeing, like, I can see it in my brain. If Mando stays throughout this whole entire rest of the show, it's gonna be dual flamethrower back to back.
No,
and they're gonna be in a circle, and they're gonna spin in a circle, and they're gonna
shut up. Do not speak this into existence. Oh my God.
I'm calling it now.
No, bad enough I have to deal with one fucking flamethrower on my screen at a time. No, I do not want to have to deal with two of them. This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
It'll happen. Always two there are.
No. I reject this. Please move on.
Up next, Peli and Mando begin to fix up the starfighter together when a group of Jawas bring them some parts. Montage ensues, and Mando now has a new ride.
I love that you could fucking Amazon wishlist the Jawas.
They're just like, I love that. First of all, I love Peli has just like this weird like connection to them. First of all, we'll talk about that in a second. Second of all, like, she's so well connected to them that she's just like, hey, can you guys get me this thing? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can get it. Also, she can speak Jawa, which is, I love that she is like this computer of just every alien language ever.
I do love in the show when they demonstrate that someone has taken the time to learn to communicate with another species or another group of people on equal footing. I love like Dan with the Tuskens in Mando season 1, where he's talking to them in sign language, or here where Pelimoto is speaking to the Jawas. Yeah, it's funny to watch Amy Sedaris try to do the Jawa sounds, but I do actually appreciate that someone has learned to speak to the Jawas in their own language. They can very clearly understand what she's saying when she speaks in Galactic Basic, but she chooses to speak to them in their own language. And I think that's pretty cool of her. Also, super open-minded, apparently.
Pelimoto has fucked a Jawa. That is canon. So let's put that out there. And also they're hairy.
did not expect last week when I was talking about how Black Chrysanthemum might have turned me into a monster fucker. Did not expect that Pelimoto was also on that team.
Good company.
Truly.
She's clearly our pansexual queen. Like, I'm assuming that's what it would be.
I think you can still be straight and want to fuck an alien. So
yeah, that raises the question of sexualities. Like, Vice Admiral Holdo states in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, that she finds, she finds human males limiting. Like, Vice Admiral Holdo is pansexual because gender and nothing matters to her. She'll just go for whatever. But she talks about how, like, oh, you need to broaden, because Leia always goes for human males. And Holdo's like, you need to broaden out a little bit, honey. You're missing out.
Can you imagine how great the sex toys in Star Wars must be?
Oh my God.
They have,
I would imagine,
it's like
wild technology.
It's like the dragon tongue dildos, but better.
From Bad Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, but with sci-fi. Don't
This
ask
episode
me how
brought to you by Bad Dragon. Sponsored, baby.
Bad Dragon, if you're listening, we will take sponsorship money from a lot of people.
From anything. We don't care.
There are very few limits on what we will take sponsorship money from. Like flamethrowers, for instance. Wow. Yeah, no. Like, again, it seems like it should be a throwaway joke, but like, there's other stuff going on there. Like the Jawa that asks her out, and she's like, oh no, I'm working on myself, but thank you.
Got one of them fancy Star Wars sex toys now.
Yeah, you know what?
Good for her.
Good for her. Good for her. I agree, Pelimoto.
Speaking of a little bit of everything, this montage has like garbage from the A New Hope trash compactor. It's got a BD droid.
The BD does the scan.
It's got a pit droid. We got the scan from the BD droid. We got the like Naboo chrome that Captain Phasma built her armor out of. Like, we have like all these little pieces and aesthetic connections to all these other eras of Star Wars. It's very cool.
I didn't even think about it, but there's your Captain Phasma reference, Bradley. Is the Naboo starfighter is made out of the same type of chrome as the Emperor's yacht, and a melted down Emperor's yacht is what Phasma's armor is forged out of.
There you go.
There's your fun fact. You should read Phasma. It's a very good book.
Maybe I'll get it on Audible now.
You can get it on Audible.
Please sponsor us.
Please everyone give us money to do the show.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody else has like Audible Audible used to be like the super popular one for a while there. So like, why the hell are they not giving out free sponsorships anymore? Because like, come on.
Exactly. Give the money to us.
Exactly.
I will shill for your service in exchange for lots of money and free Mark Thompson audiobooks. I just love the sequence where she's like made a bunch of modifications to the starfighter. And Dan's like, oh, but that would cause this and this and this. And then Pele's like, oh, but I have thought of that because I am the best at this. Mm-hmm. I think that Pele doesn't get a lot of credit for really genuinely being a good mechanic. And I think that little exchange demonstrates how capable she is, because it's very easy to just get things to work the way they should. It's much harder to be creative with your usage of things. And I think that demonstrated exactly how good of a mechanic she is and how well she knows her ships, that she was able to do that.
I also think she's very clearly setting up the fact that Grogu is going to be sitting in the spot where the droids are supposed to go.
Oh yeah. No, like Grogu's going in the little bubble thing.
Oh, he's going in the bubble.
There's no room for a bounty, but there's room for Grogu.
Right.
There is room for Grogu.
It's like like a
McDonald's play place with a little bubble that he can be in.
Yeah.
But it's space. I do think real fast, there's a reference to a krill pond. We remember that from the Sanctuary episode of Mandalorian. That gets brought up here, which I thought was neat. This is the moment that demonstrated to me what this episode could have been. Like, this episode was great, but it could have been something a little bit better. It's when Pelimoto is talking about how bad things have gotten since the Pikes moved in. She says it, but we don't ever really see it. And I think an opportunity was missed to show from Den and Pelly's perspective what it looks like to be under the Pike occupation in Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
She should have said that it's been way harder to get parts recently since the Pikes moved in, and that they'd have to get creative to fix up the Starfighter. And you could have literally had the same exact montage because she's working with the Jawas and the Jawas are like stealing shit for her. But they could have just had a line of dialogue that since the Pikes have moved in, it's been way harder to get, necessary supplies.
Yeah, because they have that little line that's like, oh, the Jawas are like, oh, we stole it from a Pike sand train, which you can kind of infer that, oh, the sand trains are back, and after Boba went to all that effort to get them to stop, but it's a bit of a huge stretch, and I feel like it could have been shown more directly, or maybe like Mando wants to leave at one point to go and fetch something himself, and Den is like, or not Den, Peli is like, yeah, you can't really do that right now. Like, you can't go out. You need to stay in the hangar because it's just not safe out there, and you will get jumped.
And I wish she would have also mentioned something along the lines of like, yeah, the new guy in charge. Like, she could have been talking to him about Boba and been like, all this stuff has been happening, since I last saw you. Like, it's been terrible in Tatooine. There's been all this fighting. There's been all these like Wookiees walking around, like, whatever. She just had to mention stuff like to kind of tie it all in, and she really just kind of dropped the ball there. But that's not.
Yeah,
really
she
her
was
fault,
like,
but...
yeah, the Pikes are there, and it sucks.
Up next, Mando decides to take his new ride for a spin, giving us hella pod racing vibes until he is pulled over by the cops.
Now this is pod racing.
This sequence was arguably, just every little shot was almost like match for match, like from Phantom Menace. Like, there was almost every scene was a match for something else in Phantom Menace, up until like even like the guardrails that are still broken on the run, like in the same spot that he drives by.
I never made the connection that that's Beggar's Canyon that they're going through until this episode. I never made the connection because I've gone through that in so many pod racing games, and I've gone through that in Lego Star Wars so many times, and I never realized, oh, that's Beggar's Canyon.
You're making me feel old because I flew through it in Rogue Squadron.
Oh, I do actually think too that when he turns the N1 on, that's exactly the same ignition sequence that they do. I didn't have a chance to check, but I'm pretty sure it's the same ignition sequence that they do in Phantom Menace. Our dank ferret counter for the Book of Boba Fett is now at 3. I can't stop. I started for our Mando coverage and I can't stop. I have to count them now. I guess it's
not that weird that it would pop up in this episode because obviously Mando's here. But do we have to have a new counter now? Because
no, Bradley, this is not Dark Side Divas. We are not going to have counters for fucking everything. I'm sorry. No, I refuse to count this because someone out there will track the counters.
Exactly.
And I don't want to feed into that for them. Let's
talk about cops.
Let's pull the pin out of something else that I said let's put a pin in this and come back to it.
Boy.
Yeah, there's something that speaking of pins that Bradley wants to be put in him, Max Lloyd Jones is here.
Welcome back, sweetie. Well, technically, we have to be technical about this because unofficially he hasn't really shown up before, but officially he has. Like, his body was technically in an episode of Mandalorian before, but yes, his face is now for the first time here.
For those of you who are just tuning into our Book of Boba coverage, a quick catch up. Max Lloyd Jones was the gentleman who was the body double for Luke Skywalker in season 2, episode 8 of The Mandalorian, and was also one of Bradley's childhood crushes during his role in The Sandlot 2. And he is now showing up again playing a Lieutenant Reed, who is one of the cops who pulls Mando over, which I didn't realize that was him until somebody pointed it out to me.
Yeah, I noticed it right away. Probably because
of course you did.
I have a deeper connection to him than you do, but that's okay. I don't blame you for not recognizing. He did have facial hair, so.
Yeah, he had a little bit of stubble going on this time.
Right. But honestly, I think they did that on purpose, because the fact that he had facial hair was due to the fact that if he did not have facial hair, people would have been like, oh, Luke Skywalker's in an X-Wing and he's pulling over Mando. What? Like, it wouldn't have made any sense.
He should have just been Luke. That's a different conversation, but yeah, it's good to see him again.
Yeah, I actually agree. They should have just recast him with Luke, and then that would let Luke be more versatile and be in more things in this era. We badly need to get away from the idea that only certain actors can embody certain characters. And that was something I think Solo took a lot of strides towards. Mm-hmm. And now we've kind of slipped backslide with the
just like Mando. Just like Mando.
They should have recast Leia in Rise of Skywalker too, which I know is a much more controversial opinion as well. But
interesting.
That's just what I think. I think it would have been stronger. But anywho, yeah, cool to see both these actors again, and I like Carson Teva. So
yeah. Speaking of the other one, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is back as Carson Teva, which again, we're gonna pull a pin out of something I said we'll put a pin in, or way up at the top of the episode. Just fucking give this man Rangers of the New Republic. Just give it to him.
So
we all love him.
I was gonna say,
carry a show.
I just watched for the first time ever Kim's Convenience, which he is
so fun.
I watched the first episode. Arguably, he is the best character in the show. He's so funny, and watching him like go from playing that stereotypical, character who doesn't necessarily speak English all that well, but like then watching him in this being like completely different. Like, he is such a good actor. He has so much range that the fact that he can go from that to this, it's like, yeah, maybe he should have his own show now. Like, I'm thinking about it, like, why not make a funny, it doesn't even necessarily have to be funny, but I think it would be a nice break from Star Wars to do a funny cop show. Like, it would be an interesting, like, I mean, obviously not cops, but like they're space cops. Like, but it would just be funny to have his own like squad that love misfits that he has to deal with all the time. Like,
yeah, just have him be like, just do Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but like with New Republic space cops instead. And it's Carson Teva putting together this like Phantom Squadron like team of, that was my shout out to Aftermath for the week. Like this team of people who's like flying around doing the X-Wing thing, and have that be the show.
Yeah,
like that could work so well, and it would be such a subversion of what we would think should be like a New Republic show. I don't know. I think they should give the show to this guy.
I agree.
Yeah, you'll get no argument from me.
Once Mando returns, he is confronted by Fennec Shand, who finally connects us to the Book of Boba, who offers him a job as some muscle, but not before he decides to pay a visit to his little friend.
I only have 2 notes for this little scene at the end here. The first is Mando calls the quote-unquote pod racing wizard.
So our wizard counter is now at 1.
Jesus fucking Christ, Bradley.
I thought Kitster was going to be in this episode as an adult, because I saw on Twitter everyone saying wizard, but I had blocked like every Star Wars thing, but still I was seeing people say wizard. And I was like, oh my God, is Kitster in this episode?
That would be actually kind of cool to bring him back in a weird way. Like, if not, like, or have him bring him back and then have him maybe, I don't know, like know Pelly for some reason. Like, oh yeah, we're neighbors, or like she takes care of my dog on the weekends, or something stupid like that. You know what I mean?
So I can explain why Wizard blew up. It's because, so everyone, including me, has High Republic brain rot. Because the High Republic has been coming out for a little over a year, and it is the best Star Wars thing in a long time. But they just had an issue, which was the Galactic Bake Off issue for the High Republic Adventures. And the High Republic Adventures has revealed the origin of saying wizard as an expression of excitement. And that comes from Jedi Padawan Ram Jomaram just fucking making it up and other people adopting it. This one kid during the High Republic era was like, I'm going to start saying things are wizard instead of saying things are cool. And now everybody says it.
Very cute.
Yeah. So when that got brought up, everyone like me who has High Republic brainwash was like, I know this is a reference to the Phantom Menace, but Ram? Is that you, babes? Oh my goodness. My other note is just wondering who the little friend is and why is it Cobb Vanth?
Oh my God, it's not Cobb Vanth.
It's Cobb Vanth.
Oh my God, his little friend is Grogu. Let's relax.
He's not going to get Grogu. He's not going to get Grogu back in between episodes.
Presumably while Fennec was coming and fetching Din, Boba was going and getting help too. So I'm excited to see what friends Boba shows up with. Dengar, Bosk, Embo, who knows? But I'm excited to see who might show up.
Jas Emery, maybe? That was my other obligatory Aftermath reference.
Jess, cool.
My only guess would be, I think the most likely option is probably just Bosk, only because I was thinking like that, because the Trandoshans are such a heavy presence in Tatooine at the moment, like it would be a really cool dynamic to be like, their champion or whatever, their fucking person that they send to be like, here, you can have him, like, here's Bosk. And then have Bosk and Black Chrysanthemum like fucking hate each other, but then have to work together. Like it works so well. Like
that's
like
even. I did not think I was into Bosk and Black Chrysanthemum enemies to lovers, but the more I think about it, there is only one bed. I'm just saying. What if I just had a thought here? What if Mando season 3 and the back half of Book of Boba are actually occurring simultaneously? So Din goes off, does the first episode or two of Mando season 3, and then comes back to do the end of Book of Boba, and then it continues on.
Yeah, I know it's hard to think because I thought like I also thought that too. Like he's gonna do that and then come back and then finish this out and then not have Grogu, but then that's a mislead, right? Because it's going to be like, oh, he just left Grogu with Peli or something before he finished what he was doing with Boba. Something there. Like we have to believe that he doesn't have Grogu for a hot second, but he's going to get him back like immediately.
Yeah, I still think it's Cobb Vanth. Timothy Oliphant went on a late night talk show and he had the Cobb Vanth beard. So that is evidence that Cobb Vanth will be back and him and Din will kiss on the mouth. Din will take his helmet off for this. I am correct about this. This is not my exhaustion brain talking. I'm completely correct about this. Lucasfilm, hire me. I am available.
But yeah, I'm definitely excited for next week. This was like a really good, fun cliffhanger, and having like the speculation brain is a really good time with Star Wars stuff. So being able to like fantasize about who else might join the team and what characters might show up and will Grogu be here or not, it's very fun.
It's fun if you don't hype yourself up and base your expectation of something on whether or not it meets that expectation.
Sure.
That's the one thing. I love to speculate about things, but I also now know that like I can't judge a piece of work by whether or not it met my personal expectations. My favorite piece of work, my favorite Star Wars movie, as I mentioned before, is The Last Jedi. And The Last Jedi did nothing but be like, oh, you had expectations? Yeah, fuck those. We're going to do something better.
I also think that with this show, like it's hard to hype up because now we know that theoretically the next episode is directed by Dave Filoni. And so
oh fuck.
So who knows what the fuck is gonna show up in this episode? Like for all we know, Ahsoka is fucking showing up in this goddamn next episode. Like, you know what I mean? Like for all we know, like we really don't know.
It's R2D2. The answer is it's R2D2. R2D2 is going to show up.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is if they do your theory of like he goes away and comes back, then we're not going to see quote unquote Luke. again. But what if they do show him go back to Grogu in the beginning half of next episode, and fucking Luke Skywalker is in the goddamn next episode?
If they do the fucking reunion in the Book of Boba Fett,
yes,
which is again ostensibly the show we're meant to be watching, that will annoy me. Like, if he goes away and then he comes back and he has Grogu, because crew gifts from the Book of Boba Fett had the Grogu emblem on them. So
I've had friends skipping this show because they just don't like Boba Fett. And I was like, you guys need to watch this episode.
Yeah.
Maybe I just really want it to be Cobb Vanth, because him and Din should kiss on the mouth.
Yeah.
That's my final thought on that. Andy, do you want to give us your final thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, it's a really good episode. It deals with a lot of heavy themes, and then it's also just like has a lot of joy in it. I think there's a lot of subtextual metaphor that you can read into it if you want to. I'm a big fan of the X-Men comics, specifically like the old stuff, the 70s and 80s stuff. And something that Chris Claremont brought to those comics was the mutant metaphor for minorities. That's not something that Stan Lee made up. That was something that Chris Claremont brought to it. And he really fleshes it out by bringing in characters who are otherwise minorities. So he brings in Storm, he brings in Kitty, who's Jewish, Magneto, who's Jewish. And the mutant metaphor then has way more meaning and depth to it, because you're exploring it through these marginalized identities of like Storm being the main character and stuff. And I think what Star Wars is lacking in its metaphors is having more marginalized identities, specifically queer identities. So we have people of color leading Star Wars stuff now, which is amazing and huge leap forwards. And we have projects led by women characters who are just like carrying movies and shows and stuff, which is dope. But we're really missing queer characters. And I think the idea of an outsider leaving their faith behind is a really strong queer theme. And I think it would hit harder if it wasn't just metaphorical. That's my final thought. That's my thesis on Din Djarin's a gay man.
My final thoughts in the episode. I have seen some criticism, which I said at the top of the episode, my dislike was I felt like Boba didn't feature enough in it. But I do feel like it was important to show where Din is at as a character when he comes in to play a role in these last two episodes of Book of Boba. I don't think that just one or two scenes would have adequately conveyed that. They didn't have a lot of room, and I think overall it may hamper the Book of Boba series somewhat to have spent an entire episode on a character that's not Boba Fett. But I do like that they slowed down to really dig into where is he at following losing Grogu. I did think that was good. Loved the episode. Again, my only real complaint was that it didn't tie into Boba Fett quite enough, and I don't think he needed to show up. It may be that turns out to be for a specific purpose. Like, Din may make a decision in the last two episodes that we needed context for, but right now, as it stands as of recording this with no idea what's in the last two episodes, I really think that they could have done this maybe a little better to tie it in, but I still think it was a good episode. Bradley, what about you?
Yeah, you've pretty much echoed all my thoughts. I mean, I love all the Easter eggs, all the prequel stuff. Is just it just makes me so happy to see all that stuff. Like, it almost makes me want to have like one of these shows have like fucking Jar Jar show up. Like, I genuinely want to see that. Like, I want to see live action Jar Jar show up, and I want to see, you know, the cat monster thing from Attack of the Clones show up. I want to see, you know, I just like
it's called a Nexu, and it is a foundational part of our friendship.
I want to see a Nexu show up. I want to see Jar Jar show up. I want to see fucking Sebulba show up in this goddamn show. I want to see Watto, old man Watto, show up in this show. I want to see just everything. Like, just bring it all back. Okay, like, I don't care how like annoying it is like to have prequel stuff in this stuff. Like, all those kids are all grown up now. So all the people who like the old movies are dead now. So great. We can have our prequel time. And this is that time.
Preach.
You know, so this is the era of the prequel and it's coming back. I love it. I want more stuff. I also think that this episode is both the best episode of Star Wars TV ever so far, but it's also the worst episode of Book of Boba, as it is not related to Book of Boba in any way whatsoever. That being said, it was still an amazing episode. They just needed to find a way to have Boba in this episode. I don't care how they did it. They should have just figured it out. Like, he didn't even have to make sense. He just should have just been walking around doing stuff, because honestly, like, it is questionable. Like you said, we don't know what the next episode's like, so maybe it all makes sense in the long term. But like, if we're gonna watch this all like 7 episodes back to back, and then you shoehorn in this Mandalorian season 1 premiere, basically, like, I don't even know why we're pretending that that's not what this was. This was season 3, episode 1 of Mandalorian. I mean, for the most part. And it just, I think the problem was, timeline wise, they are trying to force the timeline to work. And I think that's what it is. Like, they wanted Mandalorian 3 to start at this point in Boba's story. And it's like, well, why couldn't Boba just finish his story and then you go into the, but whatever. I mean, that's just my thoughts.
All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. I know that we were trying very hard to make sure that you were on, because I wanted to give you a chance to talk about this episode. So I'm glad we were able to do that. Do you have, I know that you definitely want to plug Force Friends Rewatch. Where can people find that show? Where can people find you? And what else do you do that you want people to check out?
Sure. So I'm at a One Hat Town on Twitter. And you can find any of my podcasts through there. I retweet all of them. My Star Wars podcast is Force Friends Rewatch. We talk about Star Wars TV shows. I do an actual play Monster of the Week podcast called Good Neighbors, where it is a very queer, very spooky game set in modern day, like Louisiana, about a group of found family, and they have to protect their community from spooky, scary monsters. You should check that out if that sounds cool. And I am on a show called Ending Pending, which is my friend Ronnie and my fiance and I, and we deep dive TV shows that only lasted a single season, and we try and CSI what worked, what didn't work, and why it got canceled.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check out all of those things. Andy is apparently very busy.
I never have time.
Good God. I mean, Bradley and I run one podcast, and it about makes us insane, and there are 2 of us.
Right.
Well,
so it helps how we juggle the recording schedules. But yeah, it's tough.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time out to come and talk to us about this Book of Boba Fett episode. As we end the show, I have been listening to Force Friends Rewatch, and you guys on that show always make an impassioned plea at the end of that. Do you want to make that same impassioned plea here to close us out?
Tell the boy about his parents.
Tell him about his parents.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze.
Did we forget something? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at goldsquadgaze, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post this podcast as well as exclusive video content.
Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze.
Yeah, everything's backdooring into each other. It's like my Saturday nights, basically, before COVID at least.